This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under 18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit Scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 561 for September 23rd, 2018. Coming up on today's show, can poly work for a sexual mismatch? It's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I am your host, Minx, and with me in the co-host chair today is, once again, Lusty Guy.
Happy to be here as always, and hello, everybody.
And I don't think we talked enough about what's going on in our lives in the host chat for the last episode, so I think we should chat a bit.
Do we ever talk enough about what's going on in our lives?
I don't think people really want to know exactly when I picked my nose this week. I don't know, maybe you do. I'm sure there are some nose-picking fetishes out there. They're like, finally, Minx is talking about when she's picking her nose.
And to those of you out there, send me your credit card information, and I will send you specialists. Our business is built on specialists.
So in the last episode, did talk about having gone on hiatus, and I might have mentioned physical issues in passing, but I thought I would fill you guys in on what exactly was going on. So my knees were starting to hurt a lot. Now, you may know, if you've listened for a while, that I have rheumatoid arthritis I've had since I was 14, but this was more than, I thought it was just, I've done a little bit too much swing dancing. I was swing dancing pretty heavily, at least for me, at that time, and I'm like, okay, I'll just lay off the swing dancing for a couple of days so I can go again in the weekend. Well, that wasn't happening. They got worse and worse until I was really just hobbling around, and I kept thinking I could walk so much better if I just had something to lean on, like...
Me.
Yeah,
me, oftentimes, but that's all right.
Crutches. And I'm wait, if this is bad enough that I need crutches, I should probably talk to the doctor. So, a couple of rounds. Anyway, turns out, in addition to the fabulous lifelong chronic condition of rheumatoid arthritis, huzzah, I get to add osteoarthritis as well in my knees and hips. So, I'm old. And so I've been basically spending the last 6 weeks dealing with pain and physical therapy and terror that this is the beginning of the end and really focusing on, my work schedule and my health and pretty much nothing else. And that's, one of the reasons. That's the main reason why I didn't publish for a while, because I was just too focused on trying to get myself back into decent shape so that I could live a bit of a life again.
And good news is great progress has been made.
Progress has been made. Yeah, the biggest challenge for me is that my physical therapist is like, are those the shoes you normally wear? And I'm like, oh no, I usually wear higher heels. So she told me I have to wear flats. And I'm like, what?
Where?
I know. I mean, I usually wear a good, 2.5 inch wedge. I mean, it's not like I'm walking around in spike heels. And, 2 inches is actually not very high. At least I don't think so. But my knees do. So I have been spending the last 6 or 8 weeks basically trying to find flat shoes that I think are cute and that I think look cute with, dresses and pants and all the other many things that I own. Woe is me. Life is so hard.
Well, it has been fun watching you go from, oh my God, the end is nigh. Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to wear high heels again. Oh, actually, every once in a while, oh wait, those are kind of cute flats, aren't they? Oh wait, my knees are better. Oh wait, and it's been really nice to see, because like you, I'm a realist. And so when anything happens, I think the worst possible outcome is inevitable.
Well, I did. I thought this is the first step towards, I thought I might be in a wheelchair in a few months. I mean, I was terrified.
Yeah, we all have those kind of thoughts, right? Absolutely. And like I say, I do too. We were just talking about that at dinner. If there's a way for me to see things negatively, I often will. And so it actually has been really pleasant to see you go through the experience of discovering, actually, I kind of got this. And you know what? I got some cute shoes, too.
Well, they're cuter than some other flats that I saw. They're still not as cute as my real shoes.
But it has been really neat to see you dealing with this, baby.
I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. And I had good motivation, too, because in a couple of days, actually by the time that this show drops, we will be on our way to Paris for a 10-day vacation.
Woohoo!
Me for the, third or fourth time? You for the...
second or third time.
And Elle for the first time.
Yep, into the wild city of Paris.
I know, I'm so excited. I haven't been back in over 10 years. I miss it so much. I spent my junior year abroad in the early 90s, and I just love Paris like every little girl loves Paris. Well, not every, I should say. But like many little girls and boys and people of whatever gender fluid dream of Paris. And I was like, we're going to be walking everywhere. I remember in fact, when I lived in Paris, I was not wearing heels. I was wearing flats, very much like these very practical black lace-up ankle boots like I am wearing now. And so I'm like, I got to be able to walk in Paris. So therefore, I am switching to the flats. I'm doing everything that my physical therapist tells me to the letter. And so, because I want to be able to walk around Paris like when I was 20, or at least an approximation thereof.
I'm really looking forward to exploring Paris with you and experiencing it through your eyes and with your enthusiasm. It should be a great trip. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, indeed. Looking forward to it. And we have another trip coming up for pleasure in January. So the story behind this is that Seattle, we love Seattle. We love Seattle. Seattle in January sucks.
For some values of suck.
You know, the weather isn't that bad. The challenge I have is with the darkness. I get seasonal affective disorder really badly. And so in January, I'm not prone to depression, but in January, I struggle every single day with trying to figure out why I'm alive. And not to overly dramatize it, but I really do have these thoughts of, is life worth living today? And it's just really hard for me every January.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Seattle is pretty far north, which means in January the days are short.
Very short.
Literally maybe only have, I'd have to look to know for sure, but something like 9 hours of light in the course of the day. Maybe 10, maybe as little as 8. And then it's socked in gray clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So those...
It's not like it's a sunny 9 hours.
No.
I mean, maybe some days, but not very often.
Not very often. So it tends to be basically a couple of different shades of gray and dark for the month of January, which for me, really, it's not that big a deal. But both Minx and Elle, it leaves a mark.
Yeah. And it's also tough because it's dark when I leave for work. It's dark when I come home. I do go out for walks at lunch so I can see, daylight, but it's pretty limited and it's really hard. So we've been talking for several years about working remotely the entire month of January, someplace sunny, like Florida or Hawaii. And we actually pulled the cord and we are doing it this January. We're spending actually 3 weeks. We'll be working remotely in Hawaii on the Big Island on the Kona side. So if you are poly and in Hawaii, hit us up, let us know. I mean, I'm going to be working, full time, but remotely, presumably doing fun stuff in the evenings and on the weekends. So if you have any advice or there's a poly meetup we should know about.
Or you'd like to book us to do one of our presentations and classes for your poly group, send an email to lustyguy@polyweekly.com.
Exactly.
Although be patient because, yes, there's the Paris trip, and then I'm back for all the week before I go to Bonaire. I know. Life
is so hard.
Sucks. Oh, man, it's hard for me right now. So there might be a little bit delay in reply, but by all means, send me a line, and please do. And oh, by the way, if there's any of our listeners who hunt on the Big Island and want to go after some pigs with me, let me know.
You and your killing pigs.
They're good. Good eating.
I love you, and I want you to be happy.
Oh, good. Look at you. Very good, baby. Well done.
Yeah, I'm not really all that comfy with guns, and I don't eat pig, but, I'm happy that you're killing things that make you happy.
They're an invasive species.
Dear Minx, my name is Bryan, and I'm a young man from Germany, currently living in a monogamous relationship with my girlfriend of 4 years. Some weeks ago, she brought up the idea of an open relationship. she had two main reasons for this proposition. First, we have the issue of sexual desire discrepancy, meaning that I could have sex with her almost every day, while she's completely satisfied with sex once a month or less. This has been an issue in our relationship since the start. Everything apart from this is perfect between us, and we love us very much. We tried many things to overcome this problem, but nothing really worked except making communication about sex a lot better, which is a great plus, of course. Secondly, I am bisexual and do not have yet had any sexual experience with men. I would never leave her only to have sex with men, but she wants me to express my desires and live them out, and not repress them only because she can't fulfill them for me. So currently we bought The Ethical Slut. We're currently reading it. We're informing ourselves with other resources such as your podcast and discussing it regularly, the idea. But we do not want to dive into this heads first and fail miserably, especially because the relationship, except from the sex, has been fabulous in the last month, and our communication has never been better. So you often said that being poly can't fix a broken relationship. I'm not sure if our relationship is really broken, but we just don't know if this could work for us. I personally am open to the idea, and I think it may help us. And yeah, one thing I am worried about is this one-sidedness. So I would give her the total permission to seek out contact with other persons too, but she is certain that that isn't her thing, so it would only be me having sex with other people. Can this sort of constellation work? Do you have any experience or tips you could share us? We would be most grateful.
I have to say one thing about this, and that's that Bryan is a very thorough listener, because he not only called in the audio comment, he also wrote in everything so we could have it in both written and audio form.
Bravo.
Very thorough. Thank you.
It's nice
Much
when it's
appreciated.
made easy. Thank you.
To answer Bryan's question, I was recently skimming through Alan's Polly in the News blog, and he said something much more concisely than I would normally babble it, so I'm just going to read his quote, which is, "Opening a marriage to save it can actually work fairly often when the issue is sexual incompatibility, if the rest of the relationship is good."
And it certainly sounds like you guys have got a handle on things. My first easy, blithe answer to your question of can it work is yes. It can work. And furthermore, in your particular situation, it sounds like you're setting yourselves up to have it work in as much as possible. So, the risk in this situation that I see is that if partner A really wants to have more sex with partner B, and instead partner C is available, that doesn't necessarily diminish the desire in partner A to connect with partner B. But what it sounds like from your circumstance is that partner B is saying, hey, to partner A, go find you a C. And partner A is saying, yeah, C doesn't necessarily sound bad. Go, man, go. That's what I think.
I feel like I'm in geometry class again.
Those are my favorite kind of geometry problems.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point. If what you really want, Bryan, is more sex with your girlfriend, not just more sex, this is not going to help. But if the relationship really is as healthy as you say it is, and if you really do communicate about things, and she really is not suggesting this as a last-ditch effort to hold on to a relationship, but because she's really cool with it and she's pragmatic and thinks it will help, and if she is a secure person and is comfortable with knowing that you are having sex with and probably falling in love with some others, we'll talk about that in a second, then there's every reason to believe that it could work. Now, just because it can work doesn't mean it will work for any individual couple or any individual person, right? Because the truth is that neither of you right now knows how it is that you are going to feel when your partner has sex with someone else or when your partner falls in love with someone else. And we have, if you've listened to the show for a while, you know that we don't really believe that you can regulate who someone else loves. So you can say it's going to be sex, not love. But you really don't have any control over how other people feel about you and how they react to your pheromones. So the challenge is, if that's a hard and fast rule, just sex, no love, what's going to happen when somebody falls in love with you or your partner? Because I promise you, it's going to happen.
Or you fall in love with them. Now,
or you fall in love with them. Now what?
Now, there is, it's not a guarantee that it will happen, but it's likely, especially following the old proviso, show me your rule and I'll show you what you're going to argue about. Having said
I'll show
that,
you what you'll break up over.
There are strategies that can minimize the occurrence. If what you're really looking for is just sex and no emotional connections at all, I would encourage you to consider sex workers.
Sex workers are awesome, and they get it.
And you guys have some amazing sex workers in Germany. I have had some good times in the FKK clubs in Germany, let me tell you.
Oh, he will not stop talking about them.
Oh, man. Before I die, I am going back. A little side story. True, though. I used to go in and I would start the day at about noon at the FKK clubs.
Do you want to explain what an FKK club is?
All right, so we'll step back. FKK clubs are proof that there is the divine in the universe. Next, it's basically a really cool brothel and spa in Germany. There's a whole bunch of them. They're called FKK clubs, and it originally, it's something in German that I can't begin to pronounce, but basically means like nudist colony. Now, they have a door fee that you pay, which is a very reasonable, roughly €50, give or take. And then you are given a locker and a big plush, fluffy white robe, and there is beer and food and massage tables and porn and sports up on the big screens. And
porn and sports.
Well, it's a man's club, right? And here's the thing that gets my attention. Somewhere between 40 and 80 beautiful women wandering around in next to nothing, who for another €50 for every half hour, you get sexual services from. It is fan-fucking-tastic. So I would start the day at noon at one of these places and leave at midnight. You got a half hour on, a half hour off, a half hour on, a half hour off, maybe sit around and talk for an hour. It's only €50 a time. You spend €400, $400, 8 hours goes by. It's a great time. I love those places. I actually had a friend with me once go 1 year, and I was like, man, you don't have to stay the whole time, but I'm going to be there like 8 to 10 hours. And he didn't believe me. About 4 hours in, he was like, yeah, I'm taking a nap in the car, you idiot. So consider sex workers. If what you're really looking for is just the opportunity to have completely unentangled sex, then sex workers are a great opportunity. Everybody knows what the name of the game is there. They are safe with their safer sexual practices. It's in an accepted space, and man, you can have some good times.
And if one of your objections to going to a sex worker is, oh, but, I want somebody that actually kind of cares about me a little bit. Good sex workers will make you feel special. They will help you get that feeling that you want, especially if you tell them that that's what you're looking for.
Well, and they will care about you in the way that, any human being engaged in a customer service transaction cares about the human being across the counter from them. Mm-hmm. That is true. And they will absolutely try to act the way that you want them to act. That's part of the game. Now, if what you say is, well, what I really want is sex with somebody who there's a possibility of a connection or that I feel a spark with, then you need to go back through to your whole thing about sex only, no feelings. And examine that a little bit.
Indeed. And you didn't say that. I'm just kind of spitballing some, I'm kind of spitballing some things that may have been objections along the way.
And just to make it clear, I'm also not saying you must go hire a sex worker. It's just an option that you should consider. If what you really want to do is go cruise the bars and find a one-night stand or whatever, as long as everybody knows what's going on and consents, it's all good.
Are there men at the FKK clubs? Because he specifically mentioned that he's bisexual and wanted to have those experiences with men, and his girlfriend was down with that.
I never looked for any clubs that had male sex workers. I'm sure they exist, but I never looked for, so I don't know.
Okay, frequenters of German FKK clubs, that number is 802-505-BOLY. School us.
Send pictures.
No, be respectful. I did want to address one other aspect. If you decide that sex workers aren't for you, then you're going to be basically fishing out of the population. Hopefully the poly/swinger or at least hookup population, right? And I would encourage you, just because I do think that it's very likely that someone is going to develop feelings for someone somewhere along the way. And if you're not prepared for that, it can cause a lot of stress to your relationship. So I would encourage you now to take the time to start discussing your fears, both of you and your girlfriend, and the worst case scenarios. So what would be the worst thing that you can imagine? Is it falling in love with someone? Is it you're falling in love with a guy? Is it her falling in love with a guy? Is it a long distance relationship? Is it becoming more like roommates? Is it somebody else being better in bed than you are? There are a number of fears that you could go through, and I encourage you to take not just days, but take weeks or months or even years to cycle through those fears and think about, what is it that I'm afraid of? And the idea is not to address them right now, but to bring them into the light, because when you actually share those fears and acknowledge them, they start to have less power over you. And once you know that they're there, then if you do decide to try poly, swinging, or hooking up, then you know exactly what to expect, or at least you have an idea of what to expect. And the reason I suggest talking about this over weeks, months, or years is because you're going to hit yourself in different moods. When you're feeling kind of philosophical and going, yeah, it might be kind of cool to, live in a house with a bunch of different people, some of whom are sleeping with, some of whom are not. And there may be other days when you're like, I'm so glad I just have you and that we don't have anybody else. And you want to discuss the idea of poly, or the idea of your partner being with somebody else, when you're in a lot of different moods in a lot of different situations, because that's going to affect your theoretical answers.
Yes, but having said that, I don't think Minx is advocating you wait years to have some nookie.
Well, certainly not. I just throw that in there because there are people who did take years and were very happy that they did, because they were able to discuss this over time. But probably for you, it's going to be more likely that it would be weeks or months, I'm guessing.
Well, take the amount of time which is right for you plus a little bit. Err a little bit on the long side. But basically, I think the message that we're getting based on your letter is full speed ahead, man. You look like you're going on the right path.
Indeed. And keep in mind, there are lots of resources in addition to The Ethical Slut out there for you. There are tons of poly books. We have a whole bookstore on our website that we recommend to you, all different types of books on poly and BDSM and poly and paganism and poly from a couple point of view, poly from a solo point of view. There's all kinds of resources out there for you. And I would encourage you to, if you do decide you're going to do this, to find a community. As I always say, find real people that have actually done this before. So when you do start doing this and you have your first couple of freakouts, there will be people that you can call and they'll be like, oh, yeah, we went through that.
Yeah, when you fall in love with your first sex worker.
Exactly.
Which does happen.
It does happen.
And there are community boards where guys talk about it, where the customers talk about it with each other, and they're like, yeah, it happens to all of us. Let me tell you the story about this one that I fell in love with. It's okay. Community is always good.
Yeah, and it can be, I encourage you to, yes, you can look online. Yes, it's kind of nice sometimes to have that distance. But if it's at all possible, I know there are poly communities in Germany, and also swing communities as well, or whatever it is exactly you decide you're looking for, to actually go out and make a couple of friends, not to fuck, but to be able to talk to about the issues that arise out of the fucking. It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly Polyamorists everywhere.
Hi, Minx. My name is R. I'm a new listener to the show, and I'm just calling to share a happy poly moment that I had recently. So a couple months ago, I had made plans to see my boyfriend, M, after work, and that day I had a really rough work day, so I was running a couple hours late. So when I got home, I was running around like crazy to change and get all my stuff together to get to M's house on time. And my lovely husband, G, was helping me because he could tell how stressed I was from the rest of the day. So G kissed me goodbye, and I left to make the trip up to M's house. And M was about 40 minutes away from me, so on top of being late, I also had a relatively long drive. M and I had been texting throughout the day, so he was also aware that my day hadn't been great. So I got to his house and I walked inside and I was greeted by the sight of M in the kitchen in the middle of baking his famous chocolate chip cookies for me. I told him how sweet of him that was, and he was like, yeah, actually that was G's idea. He texted me and said, R's having a bad day. You should make her some baked goods. I would have had them done sooner, but I had to run to the store for some brown sugar. So not only had he gone out of his way to go get the ingredients for the cookies, he baked me cookies because my husband had texted him and told him that I was having a bad day. So on top of the two of them colluding to make my day better, Emma also told me to make sure that I brought home the rest of the cookies for G. So it just warmed my little Polly heart that the two of them are not only so good to me, but also to each other. So just thought I would share that little Polly moment. Thanks. I love your show. Bye.
That is the cutest happy Polly moment ever, isn't it?
Daw. It's totally a daw. That is the puppy of the Polly moments right there.
And can I tell you something really funny? So these messages go through to Google Voice, and Google Voice does basically that sort of loose transcription of the message. So she wrote, what she said was, my little happy Polly moment. And what Google translated was, my little pony moment.
Close.
And I'm like, My Little Pony is kind of happy. I like that. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our show today. Thanks to everyone for calling in, both the Happy Polly Moment and our listener today. We are a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to and continued success with polyamory and monogamy and other kinds of non-monogamy for that matter. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, email pollyweekly@gmail.com, call 802-505-POLY, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/pollyweekly, and on Twitter at pollyweekly and at Cunning Minx, and elsewhere on the web as pollyweekly or Cunning Minx.
For business issues or to book us, email lustyguy@pollyweekly.com.
I think it's time for the tagline.
Dun, dun, dun.
And remember, it's not all about the sex. This is...
I didn't do it. That's not my fault.
Everything's your fault.
That's true.
What are you laughing at?
I've got a cramp in my jaw.